Breaker, ladies and gentlemen. Beastyqt versus Frosty, a TVP. This should be fun. We saw one a little bit earlier today. Did not quite work out as Beasty is, well, true to his name, a bit of a beast on a tear. And he hasn't dropped any maps, guys, in God knows how long. We'll talk about that in a moment. Spotting the top left corner of the map, though, from the clan MTX, it is the Green Protoss, Frosty. And his opponent in the lower right, the nigh unstoppable, mostly unkillable, the beast of a man, Blue Terran Beastyqt, or teal, I guess. I get called colorblind for this lot. I'm 1,000,000% not colorblind. Hang on, this is where I'm gonna break like the fourth wall of casting and all that stuff. Like, you guys drive me nuts with this. Teal, light blue, cyan. I don't give a flip what color this is. It's identifiably different than green. That's all that matters. Because I always have someone out me on like saying the wrong color. I say cyan, it's teal. I say teal, it's light blue. I say light blue, I'm colorblind. I mean, I just can't win with you guys. But anyways, Beastyqt, if you check his match history for sTARBOW, and he's been playing explicitly and exclusively sTARBOW and nothing else, he's seriously only lost, like, if you look at his last, like, 50 games, he's only lost, like, 4 or 6 matches. Like, he has not lost a lot when it comes to this game. So he is kind of king at the moment. He won the first ever sTARBOW tournament produced by ESL, so we'll see if he can lock down tournament number 2. Not quite there yet, though. Still in the semifinals. The winner of this series goes on to fight against Steffel. Now, Beastyqt is, of course, kind of the favorite to move on, but as we saw last series, you know, Frutus being an almost nobody versus Teffel almost beat him twice. So we can't count Frosty out early. Oh, chat. I hate you guys so much right now. Anyways, one key thing about Protoss, their race has been the most like reworked when it comes to like sTARBOW. Like, again, I want to really emphasize, if you guys are tuning in for the first time, if this is your first ever sTARBOW match, forget what you've heard on Reddit and forget what you've heard anywhere else, alright? This is not Brood War, this is not StarCraft 2, it is sTARBOW. It's its own individual game that has borrowed aspects from both. And I think a big reason there's a lot of a hype train and an anti-hype train, or a circle jerk, anti-jerk, whatever you want to call it, is because people come into this with the wrong misconceptions about the way the game's played out. Now what we see here coming out pretty quick is a Dragoon. This is from Brood War. This is that borrowed element I'm talking about. But of course, it's still got StarCraft 2 elements with Chrono Boost from the Cadrian Crystal, something you have to actually upgrade into that the Nexus doesn't start with. It has a recall ability, somewhat akin to that of the Mothership Core. But of course, there's no Mothership Core in sTARBOW. So again, borrowing aspects from StarCraft 2, mixing them in with Brood War to make this very own unique individualized mod. Terran players have had a bit of a, not overhaul, but a bit of a rework, a retouch up too. The Orbital Command Center is actually a hugely different structure nowadays. Ooh, probe gonna get destroyed here by the Marines. Unfortunately goes down. But the Orbital Command Center kind of has its own, I hesitate to call it a Chrono Boost, but Chrono Boost-like ability. The overcharge on it basically calls down, well, it's the animation of calling down a supply depot on top of a building. If it's a barracks, it builds 100% faster. If it's a factory, it builds 50% faster. Either way, helps you get your production up. And that's always been the one thing Terran has struggled with in StarCraft 2. Like, it's never really been about the balance of units, or, like, well, I guess Ghosts are the exception, but it's never really been about the balance of the units purely and entirely, or the race itself. But it's just like, for Terran players, their Achilles heel has always been their production. It sucks compared to other races. You can't match 50 larvae or like 19 warpins when you're waiting on like 10 barracks to build Marines. So the overcharge definitely helps fill that little bit of a gap. But again, Protoss haven't changed drastically. No force fields available. Overcharge, or sorry, not overcharge, the Chrono Boost skill also enhances gateway production by 100% instead of 50% like it does on everything else. So it's kind of, again, I hesitate to call it the overcharge, I hesitate to call it the Chrono Boost, but they are essentially the same ability. Now, while I'm talking my ass off here, Beasty's actually done something very interesting up here, and he's actually proxied a starport. Most likely for Banshees? In fact, going to be for Banshees. Another unit that has been retouched but not reworked. Looks like the SV did get picked off. They're trying to scout into the base. So the Banshee can cloak, guys, and it does not require tech for it. However, it can only cloak for 6 seconds at a time. So it's not an indefinite cloak, and you can't destroy a worker line. It has a fairly long cooldown. No Dragoons in the base, and an Observer coming out, though. If he has the Observer at home, he should be okay. Tanks, meanwhile, from Beastyqt were produced, and guys, siege tanks were also changed quite a bit too. To talk about it very briefly, because I don't want to drone on about this, as you see, siege tank is researching. It is not innately built into the siege tanks. It has a much longer cooldown, but tanks also have a much better attack rate, or sorry, not attack rate, a lot more damage, but a much worse attack rate. So they hit harder, but much slower. Banshee coming towards the main, and the Dragoons have just left the base once again, so this is the best time for the Banshee to get in here. Gonna draw the attention of Frosty for sure, and Beasty, he doesn't even need to win this fight in the middle of the map. He just has to push it back a little bit. No command center at the natural base for Beasty and nothing in the main. He's just looking to do a lot of damage with this sort of one base attack. Natural base is being retreated too, and Dragoons are on the way home. Banshee is gonna cloak, but where's that Observer? The Observer is in fact here. The Observer's got some cool things to it too, guys. I want to talk about that in just a second. See if that Banshee gets away first, though. Oh my god, 5 health. Looks like it will escape. Second Banshee gonna fly into some danger. Looks like this Banshee did end up going down due to the Dragoons. Siege Tank still pushing the front lines, and I love the SCVs that are here to repair, but the Dragoons, guys, are pretty darn good. Observers have an ability built into them, but that has to be researched called Phase Shield. It's kind of cool, actually. So if you scan, right, like an auto attack forward, you won't actually target the Observer while that's active. But if you actually like target it down, you can still shoot it. So it doesn't make it invulnerable. It just makes it immune to auto attacks. Which is really an interesting concept because, you know, there's a lot of jokes about, like, you know, A moving, but... we'll take out the Observer. Dragoons are going to get sniped off here, and Siege Tanks, as stated before, 4.5 seconds. That's such a slow attack, but it hits for 70 when in siege mode, and 30 when out of it. So I don't know if it's necessarily worth it or not. Either way, Zealot's going to be pushed back here just a tad, and the Marines, you know, they don't have stim back, and I don't believe they have combat shields anymore. I can't actually remember. Because there's been a lot of new tech introduced to that tech lab, but still pushing the front lines. At the very least, no stim pack capable, but no stim pack necessary. A bunker even coming down, and there's no overcharge, there's no mothership core, there's no photon nexus cannon, however you want to call it. Defending against these siege tanks will not be easy. He may, in fact, just end up having to give up his natural base, which is not something, obviously, that Frosty wants to do. He can't just simply go to Stargate either. In a scenario where a player goes to mech, and they got a lot of vultures, and a lot of siege tanks, and very few Goliaths, a couple area units can be really, really advantageous, but with this bunker established and Marines slowly being picked off here, maybe this is when going for a Stargate might not have been too bad. Paying off into this later on, we've got an expansion up here in the top right for Beastyqt, and this is not like a hidden expansion, but a ninja expansion in its fullest. If you take a hidden expansion, you kind of take the one more offbeat, but still closer to your third. In this case, he's actually taken down his opponent's natural and secured his own third in the top right. Siege Tanks in such a good spot, can be very difficult to break this line. If the bunkers weren't here, the Dragoons could push into this. I did not realize apparently they actually outrange a bunker. That's cool. I did not know that. With the +2 range upgrade, gives them 6 range. Apparently, slightly more than Marines. Marines also have an upgrade for +1 range. So without that, I guess maybe they outrange them. I imagine once you get the +1 range and the bunker adding an additional range itself, probably makes it so the Dragoons do not outrange it anymore. But trying his best to hold the line here. Zealots try not to move too forward, and of course a lot of these Dragoons are so darn low. Try to push into the tank once again. Looks like he will get another tank, so now only 1 remaining, and the Dragoons still stand. 4 being produced at a time, if you could afford it. Zealot coming out here too. Needs that little bit of buffer room, but BC, like I said, guys, he's in a pretty good spot this game. This wasn't an all-in. This wasn't him trying to end the game right here, right now. But in fact has just applied so much pressure, it's really caught Frosty off guard. And again, he's taking that third base hidden in the top right while this was going on. Last siege tank looks like it will be focused down, and now only the bunkers remain. Frosty cannot range these. There we go, now realizes this, perhaps a moment too late. BC will try to salvage these and back on out here with the Marines. So not too shabby. He's got some defense up at home. Natural base has been reclaimed for Frosty while this was going on, but no further tech was thrown down. Really, really, really would have liked to have seen a Starport, or sorry, a Stargate at some point this game. But this is kind of what I'm talking about, guys. Like, it takes elements of StarCraft 2, whatever, blah, 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 but what I really like, what I really, really like, is that one of the key elements of Burrows is aggression, but takes out that all-in factor. You're no longer going to lose the game to a counterattack. BC's not screwed because he dedicated so much to the front lines. Can you imagine if this was StarCraft 2 and that went on and you had your siege tanks, 3 of them killed with 2 bunkers full of Marines? There's no way you hold against a Protoss counterattack after that, but in STARBOW you can, which is what's really cool. The best way I've been able to describe a lot of the action in STARBOW 2 from what I've cast over these past couple days is it's like a tug-of-war. There's a lot of back and forth, and there's not usually that death ball scenario. Now, yes, earlier today we saw a death ball scenario, but that's a lot less common. Still definitely an option. Missile turret's gonna come down here because Beasty is not only afraid of scarabs, or not scarabs, I don't know why I call Reaver scarabs. I mean, scarabs are what you're afraid of, they're the damage, but warp prisms, yeah, sorry, I'm trying to mix up terminology here. Warp prisms with a Reaver inside are incredibly deadly. The best way to deal with them is to take out the warp prism itself, not the actual Reaver. The Reaver is actually not that big of a threat alone. So, also will protect against Dark Templar with this detection here in the front line, another viable option that people do often to go for. But, you know, taking his own third himself, Frosty trying to catch up in this game. He's not exactly super far behind as stated before, but, you know, BC is in a much better position. One big thing we see is spider mines and ion thrusters coming out here. One scary thing to deal with, guys, is minefields. Minefields and minefields. Once you get like 14 vultures out on the map, the thing you're going to do is spam mines everywhere and cover every pathway possible. Ooh, this observer is going to go down. But the phase shield's another one of those things where I have not seen this come into effect, but I would imagine if the observer has a phase shield, it could fly over a turret without being attacked. I would think. I don't actually know. I've not seen that happen, but as predicted, Widow Mines, or sorry, Spider Mines are coming down. These do not operate like Widow Mines, guys. They take a moment or two to arm, but you can attack them while they are arming. They cannot shoot up, and they cannot shoot vultures or other workers. So very explosive damage can come down top of the Dragoons, which are not immortals by any means. We'll try and pick these off, but as stated before, you can focus them down. As we see, they're trying to arm. One will go off here. Ugh. That's a lot of damage if it does go off, but preventable damage if done correctly. BC, though, just putting spider mines everywhere. Again, more for map vision. It's like burrowing a ling, right? Like, you get so much vision off of these to the point where it's like almost maybe they should be nerfed, but the damage they do is fantastic if they can go off, and the vulture's now just kind of going to get thrown away without being able to be armed. They're going to try and get some trades out of this. Hit and running against the Zealots with those ion thrusters. God, they are so fast. But Dragoons are waiting and able to snipe them off. God, 5.2. This is like a whole move speed faster than speedlings, guys, in regular StarCraft for context. But one thing vultures are really key at and really good at is sniping off workers. As we see here, probes are going to fall down, and BC, he was looking to remove the supply so that he could build some new ones. He wants more spider mines out on the map. You don't really give a gosh darn when it comes to spending minerals as a Terran player, even in STARBOW. Gas is always going to be the more precious of the resources, and in this scenario, that's certainly true. But oh, a fusion core has come down, and Beasty, well, he's going for EMPs, he's going for a science vessel. Battle cruisers are really cool. So let's talk about battle cruisers for a sec, guys. One thing the guys from STARBOW did that I think is really, I don't know if I go as far as to call it unnecessary, but at the very least really cool, is they gave battle cruisers a blink. Like, not a small blink either, a pretty massive warp tech blink. So the biggest scary thing about battlecruisers is they're not very maneuverable. They're slow. They kind of suck. They also changed the attack speed on them. But I'm talking this big game up about battlecruisers, and we're not even going to see them come out just yet. Science vessels kind of being resurrected here. They've got EMPs. They've got irradiates, but irradiate doesn't really affect any Protoss units except for maybe a Zealot. So not really going to invest in too much into that. What I would love to see is some Arbiters come out of Frosty in this scenario. They may have lost force fields, but they gained status shell. The Protoss race, that is, and what that does is it basically takes units out of the fight. If you can cut an army down in half, Stasis Field was basically the original force field, guys, in that regard. I missed this when this was going on, though. A huge attack by vultures going off on the other side of the map. Widow Mines, or sorry, Spider Mines have been littering these bases up, and probes are being pulled against to try and deal with this. But as stated before, vultures are kind of the anti-probe unit, so gonna take some losses in that regard. Still trying to clear out these Spider Mines, but there's just so many of them. Frosty perhaps doesn't quite know what to do in this scenario. Dealing with these vultures is not going to be easy. Finally cleans up a couple here in the main, but again, spider mines are littering every other pathway. While they might not attack workers, the splash damage can still go off on them. Still trying to trade up here in the front, but all these units making more supply for more vultures to be made, for more spider mines to eventually come down. Siege tank line is not going to get broken anytime soon, and again, you'll really need that level 3 tech. Like, if Arbiters were available, I think Frosty could break this pretty easily. But unfortunately, he doesn't know about Beasty's top right. Frosty doesn't have further tech. He's relying primarily on Dragoons, and Dragoons don't cut it, guys. Once EMP comes out, it's going to drain any energy. Not that there's any energy to drain, but also the shields of these Protoss units. Oh, December's Calm also bringing up another good point. I'm focusing so heavily on the On the status field portion of this, let's not forget Arbiters can do a mobile recall, guys, and it's not like the Nexus recall. You don't have to wait like 15 seconds to use your units again. If you recall with an Arbiter, it's pretty much instantaneous. If you sneak one into the main, recall like 14 Dragoons up here, suddenly you're in a good spot to get on top of a Terran's production. But the way this game is going, Frosty's not able to do much of anything. He's lost his economy to these Vultures. These run-bys are nigh unstoppable. And looks like once again, Beasty's going to be in for a bit of trouble. Tries to hold them with the probes. Is still going to lose some probes here. And Dragoons, they can't blink. They don't have any tech attached to them other than the ranged upgrades. Level 1 weapons are on them. But I mean, realistically, guys, Beasty's on 4 bases uncontested. Because, oh, look at this. It's a wasteland in each of these mineral lines. And that's not so much to the problems of Frosty, but more like the credit of Beasty, because he had Dragoons ready, he had cannons down, he was trying to defend against it, but what can you do when you've got like constant multiple aggression? I mean, it's not like one base, there was like 3 bases under assault by so many different Vultures. But, Titan reactor on the way. EMP is available. Even at this point an Arbiter was made, the Science Vessel could just drain the energy from it. There's no Storm Tech available, and Frosty is trying to play with what is Tier 1 units versus a combination of Tier 1 through 3 for Beasty. An Arbiter finally coming out, and Stasis Field is being researched. So, again, this was kind of like the predecessor to Force Fields, guys. This was the StarCraft Brood War version of Force Fields, where what you do is you just segment an army. Like, that's the point of a Force Field, right? You zone out parts of an army so you can fight half of them at a time at a much weaker rate. But an EMP blankets the Dragoons, and suddenly they find themselves without shields. Now in full retreat from what is these Vultures. Oh my god, Beasty's setting up a Spider-Mine retreat, trap, path, card, whatever you want to call it. Either way, it's going to kill the Dragoons, and the entire army of Frosty will die in an instant. And while I said there weren't a lot of death balls in StarCraft 2, STARBOW, I can't talk right now, there was in this game. Game 1 will go to Beastyqt.